Hiya, and in this video I show you how to make a Disney Frozen Princess stroke Queen Elsa cake. It's my first go at making a doll cake, so I'll show you what I did and what I found worked and what didn't work, and hope that gives you a few hints and tips. Okay, to start with, I baked a lemon sponge cake in a tin that is specific for doll cakes. Now I used 6 eggs for this, but I found that it wasn't really tall enough, so I then made an extra 7-inch cake to put on the bottom. So first off, I layer up all the layers as I cut the cake, because otherwise it would just be one massive slab of cake and no one wants that. And in between each layer I've placed some lemon buttercream and some blueberry compote that I made. Again, that's laced with a bit of lemon as well, and that was just a case of buying some frozen blueberries, boiling them down in a pan and adding some lemon juice and a bit of sugar. So once all those layers are complete, I then added a crumb coat to the entire cake and popped that in the fridge for about 10 minutes just to firm up a little. Once that was done, I took my Elsa doll, de-robed her, and then wrapped her in some cling film, and I wrapped her hair in some cling film as well, because no one wants that in their cake. And I'm here just cutting the top part of the cake away, just so we can easily scoop out the innards with a spoon. And this is obviously the gap where Elsa's legs are going to slot into. So I'm just pushing her in here, making sure she fits, and it comes just about to the top of her thighs, and that was plenty tall enough for what I needed. So I then gave it a final coat of buttercream and smoothed it out with the offset spatula as best I could. Doesn't need to be perfect, but you don't want massive great lumps of icing either, because that will show through the fondant. And when that was done, I then placed that in the fridge while I rolled out the fondant. Okay, so I rolled out some light blue fondant, and I made sure I measured the cake from top to bottom on both sides, and that was how I knew how wide the circle had to be of blue fondant. I'd done it a little extra as I wanted a bit of drapage, and that allowed me to sort of frill it up a bit around the edges. I then cut through the top of the fondant where the hole was. I'd obviously removed the Elsa at that point, and then placed her back in. To build up the height to the top of her hips, I used a piece of sausage shape blue fondant and just placed that around her waist and moulded it to her body, so it sort of lined up with the rest of the cake and her waist. Once that was done, it was time to put on her bodice piece, and that is purely a piece of rectangular fondant that I wrapped around her body using a little bit of water. Now, what I would have done different here would have been to make that piece longer so that it sort of draped over the join a bit better. And for the back, I just used a knife to cut down the fondant. And I wasn't too worried about how neat this was going to be, as I knew she was going to have sort of a big floaty cape on. But do it as best you can. Once that was complete, I then rolled out a piece of white fondant, and this was about 3mm thick, and I'm sort of shaping it into a cape shape. The left hand side, as you're looking at it, would be the bottom of the cape, and the right hand side is the top of the cape. So I was just sort of eyeballing what I thought would look okay, and when I was happy with what I had, I picked it up and gently placed it onto the back of Elsa to create this sort of cape stroke coat. And I did put on a little piece of water just to help that adhere to the rest of the fondant, but be careful with it. It's sort of obviously a little bit delicate and quite heavy as well, so you've got to be careful not to tear it. And just gave it a little bit of movement by froofing it out a bit. I then took some sort of sausage shaped pieces of white fondant, and I wanted them to look like fur stroke snow, I guess, and I outlined the top of her dress and gave her some little, I don't know what they called, arm holder uppers across the top of her shoulders, and done that either side. And I didn't want them to be perfect at all. I wanted them to look fluffy and sort of snowy. And once that was done, I then added some little white fondant cuff links, or cuffs, sorry, and outlined the white cape again with some snow stroke fur. And I've done that all along the edges of that and all along the bottom of it. You'll see that in a minute. And then I also done it along the join of the bodice and skirt part of the dress. So this is the bottom part of the dress. So I thought it was quite a good technique because it hid any parts that perhaps you weren't happy with, and it just gave it a bit more definition as well and looked a bit more wintry. I then took some snowflake plungers and I cut out some white fondant and gently pressed them onto the dress, the bottom part of the dress, using a bit of shortening in case I needed to move them. You can see it's a bit sparkly already, and I'll show you how I've done that a bit later because I added some more. So I started off with smaller snowflakes at the top part of the skirt and put larger ones down the bottom. And then I took some teeny tiny little snowflake sprinkles and dotted them amongst the bottom of the cake. And you can see there I put a little tiny blue one on a cuff as well, so it's like a little blue snowflake cuff link. And this is what I used to sparkle it up. It's brilliant. It was like a little spray of glittery dust that I found in the cooking section of our supermarket, and you literally just spray it on and it's really cool and gives a really nice shimmery effect. So yeah, I used that all over it, and I left the top of the bodice clean. So I hope you like this cake, and give it a go, or at least a version of it a go. If I was to do it again, I would probably cook the cake in 2 separate batters, say 4 egg batter in the skirt or in the skirt tin, and then do 2 7-inch cakes as separates to help the cooking time speed up. But other than that, I think it worked pretty well for my first attempt, and I hope you agree. Thanks ever so much for watching, and if you like this and would like to see any more of my demos, please take a look at my channel and subscribe. Thanks very much. Bye.